Comedians from the World Series of Comedy, Part 6. That's what's coming up on the Art of Bombing, episode 173.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. Dan Bublitz Jr. here with you, continuing the World Series of Comedy Week on the podcast. Today I'm joined by a comedian from Oakland, California, Ira Summers. We had a great conversation. I should remind everybody, if you're listening to this while the festival is going on, the week of the World Series of Comedy, you should check it out. You can watch the shows online. They're doing 3 shows a day at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch them from anywhere because they are streaming them. You just have to go over. You get tickets by donating. You don't even have to pay a lot of money. You can donate $5 and you can get access to stream these shows. And to get that, just go to WSOCtickets.com and you'll get all the information there. And if you make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and it would be great if you would leave a 5-star rating and review. And we have some new merch available with the new artwork that's pretty cool. People have been buying it a little bit, and I apologize for background noise. I am recording in my hotel room. I just heard that door, and it looked like it popped up. Somebody closed the door out in the hallway. I do apologize, but we're on the road. So anyway, go to theartofbombingpod.com and do all the things. Here's my conversation with Ira. Enjoy. You perform tonight? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I am. I'm on tonight, 8 p.m. The 8 p.m. show here at the Stratosphere.
Nice. How have you been enjoying the week so far?
Just got here yesterday, and it's great to see all the comedians again.
Yeah.
Which is to some extent, comedy is it's a nice little community,
mm-hmm.
and I've seen a lot of these people online for Zoom shows, but it's not the same as seeing them in person and seeing how they're doing, and realizing that we're not all exactly the same height. And,
I think you're making a short joke here. Coming at me hot already.
No, the thing is, it's not. It's more the tall people than the short people. But for the people who I met online, because I can look them in the eye finally.
Yeah, right.
And it's and I forget that's not normal. But and some of the people who I just met for the first time online on Zoom doing shows, and I see them here
mm-hmm.
in person, and I think it's more coincidence than anything else. I expected them all to be taller. I expected them all to be exactly my height, and they're not.
Yeah,
and it's not like I'm really tall. I'm very average.
Yeah, but I totally get that, how that can be very misleading, because with Zoom comedy, everybody's sitting. We all do look the same when we're performing online, unless somebody has standing. I've seen a couple people standing up or whatever, but even then,
because all you see is their head and a little bit of their shoulders.
Yep.
And it's like, ooh, that person has shoulders. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's about it. So you really don't have any idea of what they look like in person and what the context is, and it is. I mean, it's nice to have the name tags here,
mm-hmm.
which is great.
Yes, that does help.
Because I am so much better with names when people have name tags, or like on Zoom when their name's at the bottom of the screen.
Yep.
I can remember most of the names at that point.
Yeah. The name tags definitely have the lanyards and badges, because it also helps so you can identify other comics. Because, we're in a casino. There are obviously other people running around. And
right.
There's always people that look like they're probably comics, or could be.
You look like you've had a disappointing life here.
You must be a comedian. And like, what are you talking about? That's funny. Have you did
Have you did any of the other satellites or anything like that with the World Series?
I did the first 2 satellites this year before they shut the world down.
Okay, so you got to do a couple of them live this year.
This year, and in past year, the last 2 years before that, I did a lot of the satellites.
Oh, okay.
Which was great because I got to know. It helped me to understand the competition process, and it takes a while, at least for me, to actually get into my heart more than my head. Intellectually, I'm really quick to be able to understand what you need to do to win. But then when I get on stage, we were talking about this downstairs below, where I've been telling myself all week leading up to it, don't do new material. Don't do new material. Don't change this around right now. Don't tell that joke. The joke is not going to work for the first time with this new crowd. And don't fall in love with a joke. But so it took a while for me to realize that for competitions, I need to just do, especially one like this where you have really good comedians coming in from all over.
Yeah.
And even when this isn't the best they've ever had, they're all still really good comedians. Yeah. And I really enjoy watching most of them perform, which is a shame that we don't get to be in the room this time because of the limited space.
Yeah. I've actually found that to be an advantage in the sense that not being able to see what other people did, as long as I felt good about my set. So it was like, I felt good about my set. I can't really compare it to anybody else. So as far as I'm concerned, I have just as good a chance as anybody else.
Right. The thing is, I'm relatively. I think I'm relatively good at being able to compare other comedians I see on stage with each other as to how they did. I am terrible at being able to put myself into that comparison.
Yeah. I can definitely tell when somebody does better than me. I'm like, oh, yeah, they totally did way better than I did.
But and so it's not, for me, it's not so much seeing who killed and who bombed.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about knowing, did 6 people tell divorce jokes?
Yeah, that's
true. And then
true.
I'm going up to do divorce material. I probably shouldn't do that. Or if I am going to do that, I should make a joke, hey, it's divorce week. And then at least acknowledge what's going on, what everybody in the room knows is happening, but not me because I wasn't there.
Yeah. That was kind of one of the seminars yesterday. They were talking about when you go up on stage, don't ask the crowd how they're doing because, like the 6 comics before, you probably already asked. And I thought about that. I'm like, I know I've done that, and you see it all the time at showcase style shows. The comic goes up, first thing they say, "How's everybody doing tonight?" And then, he's right. By the time you get to the 6th or 7th comic, they don't want to hear that.
No, and the bookers don't want to hear it.
Yeah, especially.
They're not going to judge you on how well you ask the crowd how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone who's going to get a host spot, I understand. You want to make everybody feel comfortable in the crowd and see how it's doing. That time, to me, it's appropriate. And this really is a competition for feature-level comedians.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to feature, that's not your role. So that's not what they're looking for. Don't do that. So, to some extent, that's a minus. That's an X against you if you're sitting there and you're still doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's one of them things, too, like, when you think about it in hindsight, it definitely is very amateurish. Even though it seems normal to go up and, be like, hi, how's it? It's like a common courtesy thing, just to try to be, show that you're nice and you care or whatever, even though you don't, instead of just going up and just getting right to it,
Right. And when there's a big cheer from the crowd for my name, part of me does feel like I should acknowledge that you people really have no idea who I am.
Yeah, that's very true.
I have not earned that yet. Thank you, but I have not earned that yet.
That's a good observation. That's so true. It's like, yeah, they're not clapping or cheering because of my name. They're clapping and cheering because I'm the next performer.
This is closer to over. Yeah.
Yeah, the show's getting. We're on the downhill slide. That's pretty funny. Well, let's get into the art of bombing here, and I'll let you talk about a time when you felt like you bombed really hard or had a bad set.
How many times do you want me to list?
Let's go with one of your most devastating.
Okay, so one of the most and I guess one of the things that I guess I'm fortunate about is that I come from a mindset that everything that happens is a teachable moment for me, so that it doesn't, when the show goes really badly, I don't take it really personally and get completely destroyed as a person.
That's good.
I'm upset, and especially like in competitions, I know there are 101 people here. 100 of us are going home losers, and I'm probably in that group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to hurt when it happens.
Yeah.
And if you talk to Joe Lowers, who runs the World Series of Comedy, he has seen me. After the show, he's telling me, "You did great. You just didn't win this time." And it's like, not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it bothers me, but I don't really take it personally. For me, it's more of a teachable moment. What am I going to take out of this? What am I going to do to make my comedy better, to make me stronger in competitions, to whatever else I'm moving on with this for. But given that, it's still some devastating situations popped up. First one, and it still is with me. I was about 8 months into comedy, and I got a chance to headline a show for the first time. It was a bringer show. I had done pretty well at the earlier ones, and done 7-minute sets. They'd gone really well. The crowd loved me, partly because a lot of these people knew me, and so I got a chance to headline this one show. I was going to do 15 minutes in front of a crowd for the first time, and I had 15 minutes. In hindsight, not a great 15 minutes, but I had 15 minutes. And so the show was going pretty well. Comedian before me, who was a 15-year comedian, bombed, had a terrible set, and took it out on the audience.
Oh, man.
Which is something that I knew from day one. You never blame the crowd.
At least not while you're on stage.
Yeah. And he started yelling at the crowd for not laughing at his jokes. And actually, the only people who were laughing, there were these two, I think they were Japanese young women who were just completely drunk and falling off their chairs and laughing at each other because they couldn't sit down. They were so drunk. And other people were laughing at them, watching them try and sit there on their chairs because chairs are usually not that complicated. And so he's yelling at them. And by the time his set was over, he had walked half the crowd.
Oh.
But he didn't really walk them out of the venue. What they did is they walked to the bar in the back of the room and started talking about how much they hated that comedian really loudly. And then I get up on stage, and it's a high stage. The light is in my eye. All I can hear are all the people talking in the back of the room. And it turns out everybody in the audience could hear were all the people talking in the back of the room. So I get up to do my material, and I'm only a few months in, so all I know is just to plow my way through my material, and I'm not getting a reaction. And I'm not sure why I'm not getting a reaction, because these jokes always got laughs in the past.
Yep.
And I just kept trying, and I did not know how to handle this situation, and it was just, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I might as well have. It was worse than being in my room talking to the wall.
Yeah. And what's worse about that too is when you have shows like that in a venue and the producer or the venue itself is not telling these people to hush because the people in the crowd can't hear. I mean, the ones that left, because that's definitely affecting the show. It's affecting their experience because now they're having a bad experience because they can't hear the comic perform. And so, now they're like, well, this is comedy. I don't want to come be part of this,
Yeah, and part of the reason that happened, the person who produced the show wasn't there that day. He had been invited to open for Dave Chappelle earlier that day and decided to do that instead. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But he left somebody in charge to host, and the person who was hosting didn't think it was his job to do any of that.
That's something I've definitely seen at shows, like especially bringer shows. Like I haven't done a lot of bringer shows, and I know they're out there. People do them. To me personally, I think they're bad for comedy because they give comics expectations of themselves that are false. Because, of course you're going to do good in front of your friends, but as soon as you're not in front of your friends, you find out you might not be a good comic. Or what happens is a lot of times is they just do bringer shows and that's it. And then they get this mixed illusion of, well, I'm a comic, I performed, and then I get all the, doing all these shows all the time. But there's definitely a big difference between doing a bringer show at a club versus actually working for the club.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things and I didn't do a lot of bringer shows, and one of the reasons I didn't do a lot of bringer shows is because a lot of the comedians in those shows were terrible.
Yeah, because a lot of them are first time. They've never went to an open mic either. Especially on the West Coast, that's something I saw when I lived in California. Is you get these producers that they just preyed off people wanting to start comedy. They'd put out Craigslist ads, learn how to do comedy, and then get people to basically sign up for a workshop or whatever, and then they get to do their bringer show. It was just a bringer show guised as a class or whatever, but
right. And I didn't feel like abusing my friends in that situation. So, so a bunch of them came to support me through the time, and I wasn't really pushing hard. I appreciated their support. But I would stop promoting those unless I knew that the lineup was solid all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely, which is wise.
Yeah.
And I know I come out when I talk about bringer shows. I definitely make it sound like I don't respect people who do bringer shows, and that's not the case. Because a lot of comics do bringer shows. They are part of they're out there. A lot of comics do them. They get good stage time. A lot, sometimes there's good stage time. And you got to get the stage time, and if you can get in front of an audience, that's great. But I just see a lot, like you said, the comic before, he'd been doing comedy for 15 years. Why is he doing a 7-minute set on a bringer show? Probably because that's all he probably started doing bringer shows and got, I'm making assumptions, but, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so it's, and the other thing is that when you get to a certain level, if you want to be a headliner, they don't call them bringer shows anymore, but you do need to be able to pull an audience.
Oh, absolutely. You have to
shows.
have draw ability.
Yeah. So it's to some extent, it is the beginning of teaching you how to draw. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, you want to be able to get people coming to see you because they like your comedy, not because you're a nice guy at the office and they're worried that you're not going to, sign their paycheck.
Yeah. Oh, so that's how you get people to come out. You're a boss of people. Well, now we know the secret. You're like, if you don't come to my show, you might not get paid.
Look, I would never say that out loud.
But I would definitely give them the eye so they know.
Or have somebody else who reminds them.
That's funny. Have like a little, a assistant person running around telling people, putting the rumors out into the office.
So he'll be doing your review the day after his comedy show.
I heard if we don't go, we're gonna get bad reviews. Oh, that's great. That's funny. Yeah, I've seen that too. That's another thing I don't like about bringer shows is often the producers are. I mean, and granted, that was if you're going to get to open for Dave Chappelle, totally understand it. But I've definitely seen plenty where there was. I ended up hosting a bringer show because I worked with the club quite a bit, and they had a show scheduled. It was a bringer show. Comics showed up. People showed up for them, as, a bringer show is supposed to. Producer doesn't even show up. Doesn't even send a representative to the club. Doesn't do nothing. It's just like total disorganization or whatever. And the club ended up calling me. They're like, "Hey, we got people here for a show. We got comics here for a show. The producer's not here. Can you come host?" And I was like, I guess I'll come, but stuff like that is so unprofessional.
Right,
and you see that a lot.
That sounds like a promoter, not a producer. If you're a producer, you need to make the show work. And the thing is, I didn't do a lot of shows for this producer again after that for about 5 years. And this is somebody who now produces a lot of shows in the Bay Area. So a buddy of mine was running one of the shows when I was trying to get a bunch of stage time to prepare for something. And so he put me on another one, and I figure, this is fine. Different people involved in it. They're doing really well. They must have their stuff together at this point. So I show up at a show. It's at a bar. And half the bar is set up for the comedy show, and the other half of the bar is set up as the regular bar.
Just the bar.
What I did not know until after my set was that in the other half of the bar, someone had scheduled a networking event.
Oh, jeez.
So they wanted to be able to talk to each other.
Yep.
And every time the microphone got louder, they started speaking louder.
As one would do.
As one would do for a networking event. So that was, let's see me bomb again because nobody can hear me perform. This is a son of bombing show.
One thing leads to another.
It's back and it's again. And so after my set, I went over to talk to the people who were there, and they're going, "We're here for a networking event." I don't know what these people are doing over there with the microphones, but we're here for a networking event. And if I had realized, if the host of the show had sort of talked to the crowd a little bit more and found out what they were doing, then we would have been prepared. And if I was, again, teachable moment, I need to be able to, when this is going on, find out what's going on over there. Find out what's in their heads. I don't think they're specifically, they didn't know me. They weren't there to ruin my performance.
No, but a lot of comics think that way,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because there's a lot of comics in that situation that they would address them, but not in a positive manner. It would be more of a negative, like, "Hey, we're trying to do comedy here. You guys need to shut up."
Right,
and not so, try to find out what's going on.
Right, but if you talk to them, if you find out, you can find out what's there. And I do a lot of corporate shows because I have a business background. I have a finance background. I have a tech background. So I do a lot of corporate shows. I've got plenty of corporate material that I could have done that would have gotten their attention and still been funny to the regular crowd. It wasn't what I was planning on doing that day, but it's better than just screaming into people who are trying to yell over me.
Yep.
And it might have turned that group around a little bit to pay attention to the comedy for a while for the people who followed me. So again, teachable moment. This is what I need to do next time. Next time it happens, I'm going to be there. So those, I don't think those were more teachable moments. I don't really think they were my fault, but they were me not being experienced enough to deal with the situations.
Yeah, which is very important. I mean, they're definitely teachable moments, like you said, because as especially when you're in your first year of comedy, there's things you don't know, and you can learn that not just by performing, but that's why it's important to watch other comics and not. I mean, it's great watching comedy on Netflix and Amazon, but I mean actually watching other headliners live in front of real crowds, especially when you're 1 to 2 years in, because you can really see how they handle crowds and handle situations like that.
It would be really funny if Netflix or Amazon Prime put videos of comedians bombing.
Yeah. So people can really understand what it's like in comedy. That it's not a sold-out theater. People laughing and applauding at every word that falls from your lips.
Now, on the other hand, just last weekend, I did something that was completely my fault. I knew I was doing it. I couldn't stop myself. I was just having too much fun. The election was last week. I have been writing new material every week based on whatever's going on. I don't have much of a life going on while everything's shut down. So the election seemed like the significant thing going on that week. I wrote a lot of material related to the elections. Sort of like a late night monologue type of thing. And I've been doing it on online shows, which are mostly Bay Area crowd, New York crowd, leaning more liberal. I went to do a live show in sort of California's Central Valley, which is effectively the Deep South.
Okay, yeah.
So this was Trump country, and while a lot of my jokes were sort of bipartisan, why is it taking so long for people to count these ballots? That I think everybody can laugh at. Some of my stuff was making fun of how Trump was not dealing with the election results.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the people at one point,
didn't he win?
He did. He claimed victory. He claimed victory in a lot of states.
He's still
claiming victory. I think his speech on the day after the election was pretty much, I claim Michigan, I claim Pennsylvania, I built 4 houses on each, I'm building a hotel now, they're mine.
Yep.
We're done.
He's still on Twitter, left and right.
Yeah, I won fair and square. Stop counting votes for people. It's clear. It's clearly collusion. These people all got together and legally cast ballots during the proper election period against me. That is
insane. There's no way that could happen. Everybody loves me. I'm a great guy.
Just ask Jared.
Yeah.
So I did this, and the crowd. The first half of my set was just stuff that I knew was funny and universal, and the crowd was enjoying it, and they were starting to trust me. And then I let them know that they should have never trusted me, and switched to the political stuff. And they slowly started, and then at some point somebody got up and started booing me, just going boo, boo. And that had never happened to me before, but I felt like I deserved it.
Yeah,
like I had sort of destroyed I had earned their trust, and then I'd crushed it, and that was mean of me. I shouldn't be doing something like that.
Well, I mean, to an extent, though, sometimes in that situation, I feel like it's not just the comic being mean or doing whatever. I mean, I've seen shows where, especially like back in 2016 when, Trump was early in office, I seen comics just mention his name. They hadn't even did a joke yet, and people were getting angry already about, they're like, you better not make fun of Trump and blah, blah, blah. And it's like people just don't want to – they want to be easily offended by anything, especially politics, And it's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing because you just like bring up the name and people – that support him just automatically get mad and angry, and they're very disrespectful about it.
And I did a show. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went back in Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving 2017, his first year in office. And while I'm back there, I tend to book a few shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I did one room in South Jersey, which is very blue collar, and a little redneck.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a few jokes up front. They laughed. Then I did one Trump joke, and they turned on me. And it took the next 5 minutes for me to get them back.
Mm-hmm.
I got them back because I didn't expect one joke that I thought was just innocuous to just get them all upset.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting thing about comedy, with jokes and stuff, how a joke can be funny, but people want to be mad at it because they just don't, if you're making fun, it doesn't matter what you're making fun of. If they really, really love it, and then they get mad about it, and then they choose or refuse to like you or laugh at the rest of your. It's almost like they're throwing little tantrums, with throwing little fits, little pissy fits. Like, well, you made fun of my guy, now I'm not going to like anything. You do.
Yeah. And I grew up in a family where we laughed at everything.
Yep.
Everything. That was okay. If it's funny, it's okay. And as far as my siblings, my sons, my mother, my cousins, it is okay to tell jokes about them as long as they're funny.
Yep.
My ex-wife does not want to be in a joke at all, which means I hope she does not see my set tonight.
I was going to be like, well, how well do you respect her wishes?
And
I've had exes.
I have very much stayed away from joking about my ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough material. My kids are still, even though they're 30s, they're still providing me with new material on a regular basis. But there are but I do sometimes talk about my divorce, and I try to talk about it from my perspective. I'm talking about the divorce from my side.
Yep.
And it is, and although she was involved in the divorce, it's not really about her. So very few of these jokes are about her.
Mm-hmm.
But she is a character in the divorce.
Yep. Well, and it's an interesting thing about marriage in the sense too, like even like any relationship, when from a comic's point of view, even if the relationship's bad and you talk about it on stage, the other person might get mad, but it's still your story too, and your perspective of it. I have a similar situation. I've got a one-man show that I put out. It was all based on a relationship, and I know my ex got really mad about it, whatever. But to me, it was like, well, this is my story too. You're not the only one that was involved in this. I was too, and it affected me as well. And this is how I how I cope and deal with traumatic experiences. I turn it around and I make it funny, and I put it into a show. And to me. To me, that's my way of coping, but it's still my story. And, I know she'd get mad and she'd message some of our mutual friends or whatever anytime something would come up about my show or whatever. And to be like, I don't know why he keeps bringing this up, blah, 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 or whatever. And it's like, well, it's still my history. It's not going to go away.
Because it's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny now. I made it funny.
Yeah. And so as I was starting to say, that again, my family, I was raised in an environment where it's okay to laugh at anything and everything. And so, which made it relatively easy for me to sort of move into the comedy world, where there's a whole community of people who generally like to laugh at everything. And the more tragic it is, the more they use this mechanism to make them help them understand the world and understand themselves and how they feel through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a mic a couple weeks ago, and about two people into the mic, the host got a phone call, took the call.
I knew you were going to say that. As soon as you said I got a phone call, I was just like, oh, why?
And then you see the host get up, go, do a few things around the room, go to the back of the room. You hear the host tell his kids, I've got to leave. Grandma's dying.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which is tragic. And I feel,
absolutely.
And I am, his mother just suddenly, and he had talked a little before the mic really started, when there were just a few of us on there, about how his mother had gone to the hospital and he had no idea why. This was, completely unexpected to them. And then he got this call, took the call, and we could hear him doing this.
Oh, no.
And then he just left. He left his computer on. He left the whole thing on. And we were all, really sad for him, and I sent him notes, and it's that is tragic. But part of me is going, I'm up next. I want to do my set.
That is a true comedian right there. It's like I'm sad and I feel empathetic towards him, but also I'm next.
And yeah, I probably would have made a few references to that in my material as I was doing the because that's just who I am at this point.
Yep.
And it's not. And again, I feel really sorry for him and his loss, and I don't want to diminish that in any way. But this is part of how we all deal with these things. We make each other laugh.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good way to. I've always found humor is a good way to cope with things and deal with them, because if it's funny, it definitely helps make it feel less painful.
Yeah, so you can recognize whether it is good for you or bad for you. If you could recognize the absurdity of it all and how it isn't supposed to, and be able to laugh at yourself and all the things around you, and I have some strong political beliefs. I have some strong economic beliefs. I mean, in the other part of my life, I still advise a lot of companies, government agencies, startups on sort of marketing, financial, other stuff. I'm keeping track of everything. I taught finance and economics to MBAs for a few years. Mm-hmm. I understand what's going on in the world. I have serious thoughts about what's there. It doesn't mean I can't laugh at it and make fun of it and the absurdity of both the things that work and the things that don't. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, in my mind, if I can't laugh at it, then there's really something wrong with, I'm too vested in this if I can't take a step back and look at it and go, yeah, if this wasn't happening to me, it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
So let's let everybody else laugh at it because the rest of them are not me.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's a good point. Now, how do you before I get to that question, this is a question I like to ask. The bumming and bombing, the dreadful feeling after you bomb, how does that typically affect you, and how long does it last for you?
As I said before, I tend to take these as teachable moments. The question is, what am I going to take away from this? I played a lot of sports growing up as a kid. I was in college, early 20s. I was a pretty good competitive athlete, national level competitor in a couple sports, and I was a terrible loser. I was awful, and part of you see me, they can't see me on this. I am not physically imposing. So I'm not going to have, I have some natural talents, but not a huge amount. I'm not LeBron James. I'm not going to intimidate people and dunk over people or anything like that.
You're gonna be one of them guys where people look at you and they're like, he's a guy, and then suddenly you take off your shirt to do sports and you just turn into all muscles start popping out or everywhere. Catch them off guard.
I played volleyball in college. I played beach volleyball afterwards. I was 2-time All New England in volleyball. For a guy who's 5'11", I could basically from standing still jump up and dunk a basketball. People do not expect that.
Yeah,
that's a white Jew. That's not something that's expected. But most of it is that I would outwork everybody else and outthink them, and basically hate to lose so much that I would then just pour myself into figuring out the lessons. But as I got older, and especially as I had kids, and realized that I needed to set a good example for my kids, that I wouldn't take the losses as hard. And so I didn't start comedy until my 50s. So by the time I was doing that, I don't really take these things, quite as hard. I'm still, when I get knocked out of this World Series of Comedy that we're at right now, it's going to bother me.
Yep.
It is going to bother me that, I shouldn't have done the new joke right at the beginning of that set.
And it's going to haunt you for a while.
And I knew better, and I shouldn't have. And this time, I'm going to learn my lesson until next time. So there will be, and I'll be upset at myself for how I've done. I won't be upset at the judges. I won't be upset at the crowd. I will be disappointed that, because I know that no matter what happens, there's going to be a voice in the back of my head that said, I told you, you should have just done, you should just do your Planet Fitness material. You should just tell texting jokes about your kids. You should not talk about your divorce. They're going to hate you.
And that's funny because I definitely feel like that can happen, and it has to do with being relatable to audiences and stuff. There's just some things where, because I struggle with this. Like if I'm performing for a younger audience, I'm very, very similar to you. With as far as I've lived a life. I've been married. I've been divorced. I've been all these things, but. I've had houses. I've not had houses. I've had good credit. I've had terrible credit. I've lived. And when you're performing for younger audiences, they don't understand a lot of that stuff. So it's like you got to try to make material that's still relatable to them. But then on the other side of that, especially my age, there's still references and things that from my youth that people in my age group know, but people, a little bit older than me and so on don't. So I'm in this weird middle ground where I'm trying to really work on being more relatable to all age groups and all audiences versus just a select niche, if you will.
Yeah, and I got booked to do an online show for college students a couple months ago. And college students are all younger than my children.
Mm-hmm.
So part of this is what kind of material can I do that they're going to relate to? And I know that when they see me, if at best they look at me and they go, oh, that's like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite their grandparent yet. But in most cases, I'm older than their parents.
Yep.
So, but they know people who I'm sure they have friends whose parents are my age, and so the thought that they would be laughing at their parents is something that can be relatable. It's like, oh yeah, my dad does that. That's hilarious. That I think I can get away with that crowd, which is the type of the sort of tone that I was trying to go for through the material.
Yep.
And I think it worked because they're going to have us come back.
Oh well, that's great. Show. Yeah, it's funny you said that about colleges because I just got a booking request for a college, but it was on Thanksgiving Day. But even so, I was like, as soon as I saw that it was for a college, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm your guy. That's always my first thought. I'm like, I don't think I'm your guy. But it doesn't mean I won't do it. And try to be the guy. Right. But then I saw it was on Thanksgiving, and that's like, well, I think I'm out of town with family. So
it's, I know that when college is booked, yeah, if this is somebody my age who's really famous, they would come and watch that comedian.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody like me that they've never heard of is not going to be in their first 20 choices of somebody to show up for. But if the college is going to book me for whatever reason, then I do want to make sure that when they're done, they're not sorry that they booked me.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And they may even say, this guy, it's okay. You can have him in your lineup, as long as everybody else is under 25.
As long as he's the only one that could be their dad, you can bring him. That's funny. It's like you can only have certain players on the team. Gotta like switch them out one for one. Do you have any pre-show rituals or traditions?
Other than telling myself not to do new material.
Your pre-show tradition starts really early. It's like we started talking at like 10 o'clock this morning, and you've been talking about that, and your show's at 8 tonight, so you're really getting ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get myself in the right mindset because of the shutdown, because a lot of the shows have gone online. I have not been doing shows in person quite as much. I haven't been doing this specific material quite as much, so it is not ingrained in my psyche quite to the extent that it needs to be. So I'm going to be running through it a lot in my head to make sure that I remember all of it, and it all feels natural, like I'm just having a discussion about the material. Mm-hmm. That's the way it should be going if I'm doing it right. But I don't, partly because I run Comedy Oakland, and when you run a comedy club and you run shows, you need to be paying attention to everything that's going on in the room, all the people who's being served food, who looks like they're happy, who looks like they're not. I can't be just in my head about my own set. Mm-hmm. So for a competition like this, where I'm not running the festival, I will be trying to sort of get away from people for a little while and going back to my competitor days, where I am visualizing the show going on, what I need to do, how I'm walking up on stage, how it's going, how the crowd is reacting, how they, at the end of the show, I dive into the audience and I, wave, they carry mm-hmm. me to the back of the room that way, the way a show normally ends for most comedians. So all of it I will try and visualize, although, again, smaller room, smaller mm-hmm. venue. It'll be different, but I want to make sure that I am in my head ready for any direction this thing might take, and that I'm ready to go, mm-hmm. and that I am, when I walk on stage and I do my first line, that my emotions are where I want them to be for that line, so that I feel like, as I'm, and at least my plan as of now, which I've got 8 hours to change it, is to start out discussing that next week is the 12th anniversary of my divorce. Mm-hmm. So I need to be in a mind frame where I am realizing that this is the anniversary of my divorce. So this is going on. I want to share this with all of you. That's where my I need to be, so that when I'm on stage in front of them, that I really am thinking all of this at the right time. So getting myself in that space, mm-hmm. And not just enjoying seeing all the comedians who I haven't seen in a while and just catching up with them, because I love seeing all these people and hearing their stories mm-hmm. and what's been going on, and knowing that they're healthy, they're doing fine.
Yep.
So once I'm done, and I don't remember where I am in the lineup, I think I'm like 3 or 4, which is not a bad spot. I'm not 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I noticed that for me, it's kind of, I advanced to the next round, but because I advanced out of the wild card round, that means I got the number 1 spot.
You got the number 1 spot, and the only thing that will get you out of the number 1 spot is if somebody else drops out and they put somebody else filling in on top of you.
Yep.
So it is tough. And when at the second wild card this year, the one in Santa Clarita, where I won my second round, and I went to the semifinals on Saturday, and I drew the number 1 spot. And it's like, okay, I will do my best to kill in that spot, but the crowd was not warmed up mm-hmm. before my set. I think after my set, the crowd was warmed up.
Yep.
But it made it really difficult for me to move on to the finals. And I think if I had gotten a 3 spot or later in the lineup, I would have moved on to the finals and had a decent shot at I don't know if I would have won, but I would have had a decent shot at, I would have done really even better in that one.
Yep.
But that happens sometimes.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
And I did a competition, the Ventura Comedy Festival, a couple of years ago. In the opening round, a buddy of mine who is absolutely hilarious, who has won the San Francisco International Comedy Competition, was in my opening round. He drew the number 1 spot. And even though he is a phenomenal, hilarious comedian, from the number 1 spot, all he could do was warm up the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was like in the 10 spot out of 15, and I crushed, and I won the opening round. And the second round, I got the 1 spot. And it's like, okay.
Okay, well, now you need to stop talking about the 1 spot, the curse of the 1 spot, because, you're like...
I have seen enough comedians in these competitions come out of the 1 spot and move on to the next round.
Yeah, I'm actually not really that worried about it, because I've done a lot of hosting in my career so far, and so I'm used to going up cold. I'm used to doing the rules and then trying to get the audience to like me and all this stuff. So honestly, the number 1 spot has no effect on me. I'm going to go up and do my thing. I'm going to be funny, and even if I don't advance, as long as the crowd had a good time and I'm able to, do my part to make the show good and as a whole, and then, the festival good as a whole, then I did my job. Because honestly, I didn't expect to advance out of the first night.
And I get that. I understand. And the other thing is, you're performing to perform. You're performing for the crowd that's there. But in this festival, as much more than most, you're performing for the bookers who are there watching. And when they see that you're able to handle that adversity, they are more likely to say, this is somebody I want to bring in because I can trust them. So even on a day when we have a bad crowd, this person can handle it. Mm-hmm. That's a plus.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah, and that's definitely something, especially in a festival like this, that you got to definitely keep in mind, that you're performing for the judges, and it's not necessarily about winning this particular contest. It's about, it could still, you could still lead to future work with, a lot of the bookers and the industry people that are here. So
yeah, and I've gotten a bunch of shows out of doing this in the past. Mm-hmm. So even though I did not win and I got knocked out, and in past years I have been knocked out by people who have gone on to win or make the finals, mm-hmm. And so these are good comedians. It's not necessarily that I did well enough to get the attention of the bookers, and that is really. That's the big prize for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll finish up with one more question. What's been your favorite or best gig so far? Real quick.
I'm Jewish, and as such, I am so much better at remembering all the times I failed and all the pain and the misery than I am about the things that have gone well. But the thing is, I know I've had some absolutely amazing shows where almost everything worked and the crowds cheered and it all went together. Even earlier this year, when at where I did the second round at the Satellite in Santa Clarita, and I won that one. And when I finished my set, I basically felt like, okay, I know I did this one right. All my jokes hit. I did them in the order I wanted to. I did the set that I wanted to do. The crowd reacted the way I wanted them to. And I went up right after. The person before me had brought half the crowd. Mm-hmm. And so they were all on his side.
Oh, yeah.
And so they did not want to like me. And yet I made them. I made them laugh and I made them cheer. And at that point, I walked off stage going, okay, you now have to beat me. I did what I came here to do, and that felt great.
That's
and
awesome.
If I can do that tonight, then I think I will be back this weekend.
That'll be good. Well, good luck. Last thing, where can people find you?
If while the world is shut down and the pandemic is shut down, I am performing pretty much every Friday and Saturday night. I run Comedy Oakland. We are running online shows. So if you go to comedyoakland.com, you'll see Comedy Oakland online, and you'll be able to see our shows, and you'll be able to see me perform new material every single weekend. My mother is actually watching every Saturday show, which means I need 10 minutes of new material every single week. We get a different lineup of comedians, and I'm performing with them. You can also catch me on Instagram at Summertime Comedy 1, which is spelled like my name, Summer, then an X, and then comedy, because X is for multiplication, and I'm a numbers guy. So to me, that was clearly Summertime Comedy 1. But for everyone else, it's going, why Summer X? What does Summer X mean? You're not black. Why are you doing that? So that, and I grabbed that on Instagram, and I've got, 4 dozen followers. I've got 600 followers at this point, which is, beginning of pandemic, I think I had 5 followers. So I'm getting somewhere with this, not what people are looking for in the thousands.
Yeah.
But anybody who listens to this and follows me on Instagram, I would truly appreciate it. That would be great.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitz Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week, and remember, stay safe so you can live to love.